let's face it, it's natural for us to set expectations for what we want our lives to be. We write the expectations down, label them as our goals, and then we do the work that follows in hopes that all of the work that we do makes us more entitled to these specific outcomes. And it doesn't. And on this endless journey to meet our own expectations, things happen unexpectedly. The winds change, seasons change. We are changed as a result. And through this process of our evolution, it could be that the current that has swept up into these different changes has kind of put a tear on the flag of our faith. And then we start to take the present moments that we have in our lives for granted, because all it is a reminder of how far we are from those expectations and the goals that we set. And in this spell of my life that I've been communicating through, where I have existed in my day-to-day trying to push past the feelings of disinterest, fatigue, burnout, distraction, I ask myself often, is this it? Is this like agony and pain of the perspective that I'm existing in right now? Because I truly believe that this is all God has for me, when I've already set the expectation of being something so much more. But on top of that, I am genuinely so fatigued that I am running low on energy to even prove that theory wrong within myself. Or is the fatigue that I feel a sign that I've strayed so far from source and what my mission actually was? The reason why I'm tired is because all of the extra work I was doing was never even a part of the plan. And the distance alone brings me so much shame. It's hard for me to focus on anything else. And it's hard for me to come back and speak, because how can I claim myself to attempt to be a leader when I've allowed myself to be led astray? So forming ways to create through this uncertainty has been extremely tough, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Because this is all like heavy, right? And a part of me is just like, chill. Does it have to be that deep? And then another part of me is just like, share it anyway, because maybe there is someone out there that thinks like you. So that's why I'm doing it today, because, although it's a hard topic to speak on, it's very specific. It's like a pocket of a feeling that it's hard to necessarily touch, but there's something in me that feels like it is enough. So even if it's one person, let me know in the comments below, hit me up, and I appreciate you. I think there's just nothing better than an honest testimony of what's changed in my heart. So I hope this message is of service to you. Welcome to the Raw and a Half podcast, where we get real and then some. I'm your host, Jasmin.siri, and every week I will speak on topics that align with reprogramming the subconscious mind. I share my experiences and discuss how I navigate life consciously so we can reach higher heights and deeper dimensions of the mind to reach our goals from a healed and open place together. So, let's get started. So boom. Life isn't bad, but it's normal. I wake up every day to do the best that I can with what I have in front of me. I have no complaints, but no vacation time either, if I'm being real. And your girl feels seasoned. It's like your auntie's tired, okay? I'm tired. I won't age myself, but I think I'm at the age where I fully realize where people that are 30 plus are saying, like, I don't have a reason to lie, and I'm also not about to go back and forth with anybody. And as much as I love to yap, love to talk, right? But then I realized all the situations that I got in because I wanted to take up space and use my voice every goddamn time. And I'm like, you know what? No, maybe I should, marinate on my observations a little bit more. Maybe as a woman, it is important to me to only open myself up to speak in spaces where my opinion and perspective is respected and appreciated, because a woman with wisdom is valuable and it is seen as something of value, Yeah. But anyway, I'm on autopilot, and I don't know if this is a peace that I feel or a stagnancy that I just can't shake. And the lack of excitement or change in opportunity, change in routine starts to eat away at you. It chips away at your optimism and imagination. You stop expecting miracles, especially in the intimate moments you find alone with yourself. You start tracing every step that you've taken to get to you exactly where you are, and you wondered if you made a mistake all those years ago because you've wound up in a place that doesn't currently look like this dream, right? I think the lack of things to look forward to scared me because who knew adulting would be this way? There's so many things that you want to do, but there's so many things that you have to do, and it all keeps coming in at once, and it gets hard to keep up. Am I right? And I know all of the self-improvement gurus out there are going to tell you that everything in life is what you decide, because life is a game, and you have to understand that if you detach but realign to the power of the divine galactic confederation, you will be the luckiest it girly pop of all of the self-care routines on YouTube. Yeah. But you're like, okay, that's sweet. But at the same time, things happen in life that are completely outside of our control. And yes, we have the power to take back our mind in certain scenarios, but it doesn't necessarily happen 100% of the time. Nobody is perfect. And the thoughts that come in are things that I can't stop from happening because I'm just the observer of these thoughts, right? So where do we go from here? And like, I'm at a point in my life where just like, please don't try to pacify me with a ChatGPT lifestyle tip for a check from Google AdSense, right? Like, I have so many bigger fish to fry that it's going to take a little bit more processing through. It's going to take a much deeper dive for myself to feel settled. Because as an overthinker, I've probably thought of everything that you're probably going to tell me online, right? And it's very hard to find new and fresh thoughts and ideas. And even for myself, I'm often having to only learn from my own mistakes as opposed to hearing someone else's processing of life, you know. Even when I'm reading a book that's supposed to help me, and I know it is going to help me eventually, I won't fully understand what they're telling me until my life is a mirror to what they're maybe saying. And yeah, I think when it comes to this niche of people creating self-help things, people can only say so much. And I think that's what I'm kind of growing out of. As much as I'm kind of creating the same thing and I sound like a complete hypocrite, I guess I don't care enough to say I'm growing out of the niche of women that probably have not necessarily experienced certain things, that are telling me what to do about certain scenarios that no one should be telling you what to do. You know, it's just like I'd rather hear an honest testimony that is absolutely nothing like what I've experienced, but is so raw to them that maybe in the future, this story is so captivating, it'll be in the back of my brain if something similar comes up. Then somebody just giving me a bunch of tips that in no way, shape, or form relate to their life or are realistic enough to relate to my own. But anyways, that wasn't the point. Moving on to the point. The point is, I thought that if I stayed obedient to this season of my life, opportunities would just like fall out of the sky like manna from heaven. And through this rite of passage from all of the hours that I spent putting into my passions, I would be validated and rewarded. And my ego says that if I'm not rewarded in the time that I feel like is most deserving, then obviously I'm doing it wrong. And that's when my faith starts to walk the plank. And then on top of that, I feel like I'm shrinking in areas where I felt confident and I felt like I was doing good and maybe things were working out for me. If I'm not receiving the results, I've kind of trickled back into this smaller version of myself that I was before. And I start to question so many things, and I ask God, like, if all of the work I put in last year was not an indication that I was worthy or I was ready for more, then what is? And the fact that there is something more scares me. Not that I don't think that I'm capable, it's just that, like, can I be stretched anymore? I don't know. I don't want to doubt myself, but I just know how exhausted I've been, and I don't see any stretching from where I am now. So it's tough. And yeah, I asked myself a lot of questions. I asked God a lot of questions, you know. Definitely was the last year that I put in dedicating to trying to, like, develop a craft out of what I love. Was that not enough? Was there a test that I failed? At what moment did I reveal that I was not ready? And if so, could I receive some type of epiphany and lesson? Because I promise, like, I'm willing to do the work if that's what it takes. And then I ask these questions and I try to wait for a response. And it's like I am literally waiting for a response from something that's higher than myself. And when I'm waiting for an answer, I can't just sit on my couch and wait for it to fall out of the sky like I wish it would sometimes. So I have to live out each day moment by moment. And when I'm on the lookout for a download or a synchronicity, one thing about me that I know that I do around that time, I'm like always super present in my day-to-day. So maybe I won't necessarily indulge in all of the things on social media. Maybe I'll spend more time watching TV or just staring off into space, looking for a thought or an answer, you know, or I make the mundane task of my day-to-day like my main priority. Or if I'm at work, I'll make sure I give a phenomenal experience, you know. Or when I'm in my car, it's dead silent. If I'm in the grocery store and someone wants to approach me, I'm always like, what's up? And I'm open, because I'm wondering, like, what did he tell you to tell me? You know, what? I don't want to miss any moment. But anyway, a few weeks pass without hearing anything. And a few weeks of not hearing anything from me takes me right back to pilot mode. I'm back on autopilot. The thought and the expectation of, like, receiving something, getting this awareness was completely out of my mind. I gave up. Until one night at work, on autopilot, of course, all I was thinking about was getting back in the bed. So much. I could think about what I was going to wear when I got out of the shower and the lotion that I was going to use to make me feel good when I got in the bed. Like, that's how much my mind, although my physical body was at my work, my mind was getting into that bed. And after my class that evening, a client approaches me and says, "Hey, I just want to let you know that what you do matters to me." And I was so, like, smitten by that, because when you're at a job and you're able to be on autopilot, you often exist on the left side of your brain while doing it, that the task gets so mechanic to you, and you've detached yourself from the passion from it completely. Whether the work is good or bad is completely out of your mind as long as the job is complete. And that's where I was. But the fact that what I was doing was good enough for somebody, it surprised me. And then I became open. It was just something to bring me back to the present, and I really appreciated that. And it just attracted more in my life that I needed to be present to. And that small act of kindness came and went along with the feeling of flattery. And after moving on my way to work, I had this really big unsettling feeling while I was driving. And I realized how dangerous driving is. And I just saw every car as a life. And so many people get in accidents that change so much so fast. And how blessed we all were for us to just kind of be able to do this very common thing. And I thought to myself, like, wow, like, we really don't have to be here. I don't have to be here. So, like, thank you, God, for keeping me in good faith that I use my opportunity of life to serve you. I was so deep in gratitude on my way to work in a way that doesn't happen often. So I go to work, and my last class of the day, I had a gentleman in attendance who was the husband of one of my regular clients. And we have had pleasant conversation before, but this time we got to know each other a little better. And he talked about why he takes my classes and how my classes make him feel. And he asked me about my background, and I told him, and for me, how I express it was, when I am serving in this way of being a teacher, it's just such a part of like my being that it's become a trade, of course, but I just can't see my life without teaching. And he just told me that it shows and that I seem happy, and he appreciated how I was able to give him rest. And it wasn't until after that class that I heard him and his wife speaking about like the hospital that they work at and their department and the type of clients that they see on a regular. And it was like in that moment that I realized the part that I played, not only in his life, but the part that I played being present where I am. And I see a lot of working professionals that carry tension in different places in their bodies and how their line of work is affecting their posture in the long run. And I was able to give a service and aid to a person that aids so many others. And on my drive home, I just started to cry because it's like I just basically talked about how much I took this present moment of my life for granted because of the mundane tasks that I do in my day-to-day to survive. And it's like you never really know what part you play in a person's success, I think God has just a funny way of making sure people play their parts. And there are no small roles and no small parts, just small perceptions of the roles that we have a responsibility to play. And everyone matters somewhere to someone. And I love to be of service. And it was just a gift to hear the ways that this season of my life was servicing someone else. I think we can talk a lot about like the different jobs that people have and the success and the perks and the amazing salaries. And sometimes when you're amongst different groups, you start to form different insecurities about your own life's work. And for a short while, I did. I see a lot of different types of business owners, professionals, and I'm able to give them a service, but sometimes I look at them in the ways that they may view my life or what I do for a living. And when I was younger, I started to feel a little bit bad about it. Like, if I had a client that had a daughter or a child that was my age, I knew that if they tried to steer their child's life, they would steer it in a direction that wouldn't maybe permit them to do what I did for a living. And sometimes when they talk to me about what I do and what my interests are, I know it's because maybe they're just interested in me because I'm not a necessarily open person in my day-to-day, but it's like maybe a part of them asks to kind of validate all of the things that they tell their children about why they should be on a specific path. And so sometimes I thought that my present moment was to be a validation for other people's, decisions to not take my route. And it would make me feel bad. It would make me feel like I wasn't enough or that I made terrible decisions. And then I get moments where, I realize how much I'm able to help. And then it all comes kind of full circle to me. What I do, I know a lot of people couldn't. Not that they probably wouldn't be able to learn, because anyone could learn and do something, but it's just the finesse that I have to do what I do. I know it's because there's a purpose behind it. And whatever purpose that is, big or small, it is a purpose and it is something that I should be grateful for. So it's this very interesting feeling that it's hard to explain, whatever part you play in your life, there are no small roles, just small actors. That's kind of like it's like a theater saying, there are no small roles, just small actors. And it's kind of like, you can make an opportunity out of anything. Some of the most amazing moments in like cinema come from the characters that probably didn't have many lines, didn't have really necessarily a big role, but because they were the comedic relief, or they played their part so intentionally that they were able to make an impact. And I think that's what we should all do with our lives. I used to think that piling on skills was so impressive, but where I'm at mentally now in my life, I see what's more impressive to me are ways that your life's work can be used to bless others. In the grand scheme of like just life in general, the picture is so much bigger than what I could see. And I'll never take that for granted again, or I'll never try to lose sight of that ever again. So whatever you are, whatever you do, whatever part you play, know that there are no small parts in God's plan. And that makes you a success. You know, me personally, I may not save lives for a living, but I can make an impact for a few people, and for me that's enough. So when did you realize that you had been playing small? I think playing small happens when you get so bored, so outside of the gratitude in the present moment, that you lose your optimism and your imagination. You get less creative in the ways that you could take up space. And then we let time go on without making each day a big deal just because you're existing in it. And years pass, nothing has changed, and all we have to do now is blame ourselves for not being mature or aware enough to realize all of the missed opportunities we had in the present moment by not doing the most that we could with what we had. I think so often we base our success on external things that have nothing to do with our integrity as human beings. And some of us are idolizing complete villains because they have enough money to do things that you cannot. And I think that type of idolatry is what divides humanity to this day. You know, I'm kind of guilty for judging people by who they admire and who they look up to, because I think it just shows how you measure. And it's just how you measure anything, how you measure success, how you measure wealth, how you measure health, happiness. You know, I'm not going to name who I feel like you shouldn't be looking up to, because who cares what I think, right? But it's something that I've observed definitely as I've grown older. So moving on, that same night in my shower, I just started to pray for forgiveness for like every moment that I took this season of my life for granted, not knowing how exactly I was being used. And I think when you have a heart that yearns for more and you have ambitions, you can grow so ambitious that you miss the opportunity to be a blessing in the present moment to someone, because you assume that where you are isn't necessarily, you know, a big deal or something worthy of being shared, or something or someone that could potentially help or bless someone. You know, I didn't gain $1 million after knowing about my client, you know, but the feeling that I had in my chest, that warmth, knowing that I'm living in a purpose that will kind of leave me satisfied. If I left this earth tomorrow knowing the purpose that I had helping someone else, I think I would feel good. I have strong feelings about that. Overall, I felt like I had to apologize for using my fatigue as an excuse for my lack of gratitude. And it was a loss of faith that I had. And even during this like session that I'm having in the shower of like just me praying or like talking to myself, honestly, I said like, well, honestly, I've just been so burned out. And then I got this image in my mind of like the matches that I used in my last video, but the match was already burned, and that was me. And I could hear like, even though a match is burned, it can still be used. And I was like, what? Like, even though matches burned, it could still be used. And then I thought, like, a couple of burnt matches being dry enough to maybe nurture a bigger flame. You know, if you're trying to create a big fire, you can still use the wood from a used match to maybe nurture something for like a campfire, a bonfire, anything. It's just, even though something has been used, it can still have a purpose, you know. Just because you've used something once doesn't mean it can't be used again, but it will take, you know, an openness for the possibility, you know. I think sometimes we forget the possibilities of more in us, the capacity that we have to produce more. And I think I needed to hear that in my mind. I needed to experience that to just expand me or open myself up to the many ways that I can be used. And yeah, my mind was completely blown. And usually sometimes I have thoughts like this where it's like I know the thoughts are not my own because they're just a little bit more advanced, so they have to come from like, you know, the higher source. But I haven't really experienced that in a while because I've just been distracted with social media, scrolling, and all of these things that kind of disconnect me from myself. So lately I've just been like making sure I'm having a really long shower where I'm like praying. I feel like praying in the shower is like my prayer closet. It's where I feel the most vulnerable and honest with myself. And it's like I'm caring for my body, but I'm also like releasing something. I don't know. It's something that I've always done ever since I've lived alone, or honestly before that. Showers are just the most intimate moment that you have. So I want to have that with the one that knows me the best. And just like that, I was inspired again. It was like the waters of doubt, unsettle, and insecurities were finally clear enough to see my own true reflection in the heart of the one that knows me best. And I'm sharing this with you today in hopes that it breathes life into you, like it has for me. And yeah, that was it. Thank you all so much for making it to this far into the video. Thank you so much for listening. Do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I just want to say thank you guys so much for giving me a space to really just be this version of myself that I don't necessarily get to in my day-to-day. Because I will say, it has been so hard trying to get back to just making the video, making the episode. Once you've stopped doing it for so long, you start to feel anxious and embarrassed to like see yourself try again. It's like you start to hold your breath anytime you throw yourself back out there, but it won't feel better until you do it. And for a long time I used to ask myself like, okay, why do I do this? Even if I stop, like, why do I go back to it? I'm so okay with like putting myself out there and making myself look like the fool that some people would pity, just so I have an opportunity to bring you closer to the one that knows you best. Do not forget to follow me on Instagram at jasmin.siri. You can listen to this audio on Apple and Spotify at the Raw and a Half Podcast with Jasmin Siri. And yeah, I'll see you guys in my next one.